Welcome to the Actually You Can podcast. I'm Miff Galloway, a performance coach passionate about supporting ambitious and high-performing women just like you who know they have untapped potential just waiting to be unleashed. If you're looking to massively up-level your performance in all areas of life, you've come to the right place. My goal on this podcast is to take you beneath the surface so you can connect with yourself on a deeper level while providing you with valuable insights and the tools necessary to navigate life's challenges and go after your goals with strength, clarity, and wisdom. If you're ready to uncover the truth which lies underneath so you can recognize your powerful feminine leadership style, pursue your goals unapologetically, and thrive in every aspect of your life, hit the follow button and get ready to explore the incredible possibilities that lie within you. Together, we'll uncover your next steps in achieving peak performance, because actually, you can.
Welcome to another episode of the Actually You Can podcast. For today's episode, I am joined by Rebecca Olson, an international life coach and the host of the Ambitious and Balanced Working Mums podcast. Rebecca helps career-driven parents ditch the guilt and overwhelm so they can be fully present at home and fully activated in their careers. Her signature inside-out approach to work-life balance gives women back control of their time, their energy, and their definition of success. There's no hacks, no perfectionism, just the truth about what it really takes to thrive as both a parent and a professional. I have no doubt in this conversation we'll go down many incredible tangents. And what I'm really keen to dive into is around the mindset that's keeping so many high achievers stuck in the cycle of never enough when it comes to balancing work and parenthood, what balance actually looks like when you lead from your values, and how to start reclaiming your time and energy without burning your life down. So whether you're a mum, a manager, or both, this is your permission slip to redefine success on your terms. And let's dive in. Rebecca, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Oh my gosh, so excited to be here today, Miff. Thanks for having me.
So the first question I know is on my lips, but also many of our listeners' lips, is why does it feel like every time as a working mum, you're killing it in the boardroom, home life is suffering?
Yeah, it's this conundrum or kind of this maybe false belief, I think, that we live in culturally and across many cultures, right? I'm in the US and you're in Australia, right? So it spans, all across the sea ultimately. This belief that these two worlds are at odds, right? And we have a lot of history to show that the two worlds are at odds. I mean, and at least in America, women only about 50 years ago, it was really accepted for women to not really be at home, right? Like it was the feminist movement ultimately. And that feminist movement led women into the boardroom and into the leadership pipeline. But prior to that moment, it just wasn't accepted, right? You couldn't do both, or you were kind of shunned for doing both. You were looked down upon for doing both. So we have a history of saying, no, women should be at home. This is their place. And then we have, over the last 50 years, like our fight against that kind of role that we've played. And so here we are today in, next generation of women that are still battling with historical, cultural kind of embedded beliefs and internal desires for something entirely different. So it makes perfect sense that we're here at this moment with these two things being at odds.
And so with that in mind, then it's no wonder we feel at odds and overwhelmed and guilt when we're trying to, I like to say when I return back to work a couple of months ago, I'm trying to integrate work into this new life, and it's been challenging. And I'm interested to hear what's sort of the number one belief that you encounter with a lot of your clients as opposed to why that's so challenging. What narrative were we telling ourselves?
I think there's a narrative around success that ultimately has to change once we become moms, right? And I don't think this is something we could almost think about before we become moms, to be honest.
No.
It's something that we have to think about after, because before we have kids, our definition of success and the way we're thinking about sort of success and happiness in our life tends to be very focused on our professional life, right? Obviously, like maybe a marriage too, or something along those lines, but likely the way we view our life as being successful is through this professional lens. And so then tiny human gets born, right? And they are the love of our life, and we can't imagine life without them in an instant. And our understanding now of what success really means is like fundamentally changed because we don't want to sacrifice our little tiny human and our time with them and our love for them and our connection to them for our career. But yet, we don't want it the other way around either. And so it's this moment that women really need to stop and define for themselves what success as a working mom is moving forward, where both of those worlds are successful, like simultaneously, like in an integrated way, right? It's not an either or. It's not this one moves forward and this one suffers. It's like, no, these two worlds are both really important to us and they both need to be successful at the same time. And your brain really needs to understand what that is because up to this point it has had no idea, right? We haven't had a context to even think about it. And so now is the time to really make a decision on how you want to define that moving forward.
And I'd love to, no doubt you do this with all your clients, and I'd love to
Yes.
hear how you do this because just even recently, so I returned to work part-time and I have my daughter in daycare 2 days a week and then I have her at
Sure.
home the rest of the time. And Monday I get the call from daycare, hey, can you come pick up your daughter because she's suspected hand, foot and mouth disease? I was like,
Oh my gosh.
yes, of course I can pick her up. I have a presentation to give in 30 minutes. That's not awesome, but it's my daughter. I have to go pick her up.
Yes,
This is
of
just
course.
what it's going to be.
Yep.
Then obviously
Yep.
the feelings you have around that going, I have to walk out of a presentation. Like, what's everyone going to think of me? How do you win in that situation? Tell
Yeah.
me more. How do
Yeah.
you help your clients define success?
Yeah, I mean, in we got to talk like big picture. We got to talk, more micro at the same time. But it does start on this big picture level. And you're right, I do. It's one of the core topics that I walk all of my clients through is how do we define success in this season of life? It usually requires thinking about your values and what's like most important to you on like an intrinsic level. It usually requires thinking a little bit more about like your purpose and why are you really here on this earth and like putting some words to that. And the goal of all of that really is to sort of understand yourself at an integral level, not through the lens of you as a professional, not through the lens of you as a mom, but just like you as a human being. Like what really matters to you. Let's get back in touch with that. And then also starting to think about like literally when you think about success or what has made you successful, what w- is that? Like what is that? What words would you use to describe that? And I would say that the majority of women and my clients would put a lot of weight on their success being how much time they spend working. And so time and success feel very intertwined to us. And we, again, have a culture that rewards that as well, right? It's usually the person that works 60 hours a week that gets promoted versus the one that works 40 hours a week because they're seen as more devoted and they're seen as a harder worker in some way. And so there's this there's this embedded idea that we need to be working more in order to be more successful. And we actually just transfer that into motherhood too, because we tend to just then we start to think that more time with our kid actually makes us a better mom. And then we have mom guilt because we're not actually spending as much time as we think we should. And so this time integration with success is a big one that we have to start unwinding. But so is a bunch of other stories that we as women tell ourselves about what makes us successful. There's stories around perfectionism. There's stories around getting things right and not failing. There's stories around how other people are feeling about us and making sure nobody's disappointed in us. Right? We have all of these kind of macro, big ideas of what success is that we have to start poking holes in and actually defining on your terms, right? And so there's obviously there's things like worksheets and things I give my clients to think about that. We spend several sessions thinking about that as well. But then if we come down to like your example here on a really micro level, so literally it's like I'm going to have my daughter during this presentation. How am I going to view this as success or what am I going to do? I mean, there's obviously only so much you can do in that moment. And if you define success in this moment as being my daughter doesn't interrupt me and doesn't get in the way of me being able to present in the best form or fashion, then you're probably going to set yourself up for, failure in that way because she's 10 months old and that's what you got, right? You got a 10-month-old. And so in that case, now what are you going to do? How do you really want to define success? You want to define it as being honest and vulnerable. You want to define it as, delivering the most authentic message you can and that means you're going to show up authentically as a mom. Like, you now get to decide what it means to be successful in this moment. And then that's probably going to dictate how you're going to frame it to the people you're giving your presentation to, and how much you're going to tell them about it, and then how you're going to feel about it afterwards, and how sensitive you're going to be to her needs during that moment, and all those things, right? If you set yourself up in such a way that your definition of success is is possible for you, right? You can walk away from that moment still perhaps frustrated that the situation was the way it was, like that wasn't the ideal, but you also don't have to walk away and feel like a terrible mom or a terrible professional or terrible, giver of presentation either, right?
It's so true because one presentation I gave with her, and my husband was meant to be home by a certain time and was so she's in the presentation, and next minute it was via Zoom, and she's throwing toys over my shoulder as I'm trying to teach something. I was like,
Yeah.
this is not my definition. I love how you've asked the question, what does success look like in this moment? Because that wasn't it, not for anyone. And so I was like, I won't
Right.
do that again. I will not have a presentation with her on the call. I'll just schedule it for a time where I'm definitely not with her. And so
Yeah.
on Monday, I just said, I'm going to do the presentation today because
Yeah.
I know
There you
that's
go.
not going to sit good for me or for her because obviously she's unwell. And so I really like how you asked that question though. What does success look like in this moment? Because I think it's really easy to ask yourself that question in the moment. Sometimes it's harder, especially when you're in the thick of it, to think big picture. What does success look like holistically? But even taking
Yeah.
the moment to ask yourself in any given moment, what success, that can be really
Yeah.
comforting.
Yeah, I was just talking with a couple of clients about this today. I work with my clients one-on-one. I also have a group coaching program, and so these particular ladies were in the group coaching, and we were like having a group chat around this because they have this mindset, again, not unlike most of us, that says, I need to get as many things done as I possibly can, and that's success, right? But notice how undefined that is, right? It is like as many things as I can get done as possible, as many things I can check off my list. But it uh, inevitably, whether you got 2 things done today or you got 10 things done today, you probably are going to leave and feel like you should have got more done. Right? You're going to walk away and feel unsatisfied and like you weren't successful and not good enough because you didn't get more done, right? Because the idea of getting enough done and that being a benchmark of success is so subjective that if you just leave it up to, I'm going to try to cram as many things I can into it, again, how most of us try to think about our time, we're just always going to feel like a failure versus what I was helping them kind of frame up is like, you have to actually you have to give your brain a container of time first, decide what the time frame is that you're trying to accomplish things in, and then based on that time frame, figure out what you want to get done in that time. Make a decision about what you want to get done in that time. And here's what the real hard coaching was that I told him. I said, look, you might get those, let's just say 3 things done in the time frame you said. You're not allowed to do anything else. Like, you have to actually teach your brain because you decided 3 was enough, right? It wasn't 3 and I really hope that I'm going to get these other 2 done. Like, that's not what we're doing. We're saying 3 and that's it. And so when you get the 3 things done, you get to feel satisfied in that. Like, you get to practice like being done and literally allowing your body, your brain to say, I'm done. Look at me. Like, I accomplished it. I can smile. I can like celebrate. I could feel accomplished today because I did the things that I said I was going to do. And when you I say that to them just because I want them to practice that feeling of success. Of course, it's okay to, if you have another hour to get a couple of things done. I'm not that rigid in it, but it will serve them well if they give themselves a couple, even just a couple of weeks of like, nope, I'm not planning to do anything else and I'm allowing myself success. And then guess what? Maybe some rest. Maybe some like non-productive work time where you just get to spend time with yourself. Like, isn't that amazing? Do that instead.
I love that. And it's funny, I was talking to a mum friend just yesterday, and she was like, when my kid goes down and I realize I have some time, I have a list of 14 things I need to do, but I don't know where to even start. What
Yeah.
would be your coaching
Yeah.
around that when you go, I have all the things and I can't get
Yeah.
all of them done? How can I possibly choose which ones to do? Is it the laundry? Is it a 10-minute nap? Is it lunch?
Yeah. Well, this is why doing some of the bigger vision work is so important. It's like I really teach what I call the 3 C's: clarity, confidence, control. And that clarity piece is the missing link for most people, right? It's literally the stopping and deciding what's important, what's valuable to you, what's valuable in your time, what you care about most, what your priorities, right? We don't want to do any of that in that particular moment after the kid is asleep and you have to make a decision, because ultimately all you're going to do with those 14 things is you're going to make an emotional reactive decision, right? You're likely going to
Mhm.
focus on the most urgent things that need to get done, or the mindset again, like I got to get as many things done as possible. So the best thing I could do is try to do all of the little things that only take me 2 or 5 minutes so that I get 10 of the things done instead of the 14 things done. But at least I got 10 of the things done, versus those last 4 that you probably left off the list were likely the most important ones. Like
Yeah.
they were the ones that were going to make you feel like a human being again at the end of the day, because you allowed for the 10-minute nap or the 10 minutes of reading a book or a magazine, or they were the thing that was actually going to give some space down the line a couple days from now or a couple weeks from now, because they
Yeah.
were something strategic you had to plan that was going to make your life easier in the end, right? They're the things that never feel urgent but likely are the most important, and you're never going to choose them in that moment, ever. So you have a lot of the clarity work, whether we're talking about defining success or we're defining like what enough is or what your priorities are. These have to be done outside of the emotion of the moment, so you can make a really proactive decision. And of course, that doesn't actually mean that that's what you're going to do just because you've decided that, right? Like that's a whole nother conversation about actually executing on your priorities. But if you don't know them to begin with, then you're setting yourself up for failure anyway, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're talking to that, I feel like something like the laundry, you can see an immediate result. And sometimes you just want a quick win. You go, I want to feel like or see like I've achieved something. Whereas if you
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm going to spend some time and get clear on what success looks like, what I want to do, it's like, yeah, cool. But that's not a result that I can feel good about right now, even though logically, that's going to get you more results in the future.
Yep.
Why do you think, I mean, if I just talk out loud to that, it feels like, yes, the laundry and seeing a visible result is a quick win when sometimes you feel like you're just failing all day. Why do you think we can be so hesitant to stopping and doing that big picture thinking?
I think it's really uncomfortable. I think it's uncomfortable for a lot of different reasons, but we're hardwired for immediate gratification, right? We literally get that dopamine hit in our brain. It's physiological. That feels really good to us, and we just want to live off of that dopamine hit that comes with those small wins all of the time. And we can sustain ourselves on that for a while, but when you zoom out of the big picture, that's not going to create really a foundation of happiness, of joy, of connection, of even, regret-free living in the end, right? Because it always has us chasing that little short, small win instead of the resiliency that comes with going after something much bigger than that, right? And so if we're talking about being ambitious, goal focused, I want it all kind of human beings, then the only way to do that is to deny ourselves at times some of the small wins and that dopamine hit for something that we know is going to be, infinitely greater down the line. Down the line. You have to sort of be convinced of that before we start. For a lot of my clients, a perfect example would be like my client, yeah, their kid is asleep and they have homework that we've assigned, some sort of journaling exercise, a reflection, a little worksheet or something like that. It's something we've decided, co-created together that they were gonna do, but the laundry sitting there, they're literally gonna sit next to the laundry and do this at the same time. That's a really hard choice to make, like short term, long term, short term, long term. Literally, it's like,
2%.
and you could kind of make an argument either way in that moment. And so one of the things I usually will have my clients do, I'll tell them, I was like, look, I'll prep them for that. I'll be like, look, you're not gonna want to do this. And that's okay. But here's the first thing I want you to do is when that moment comes that you've decided that you're going to sit down and do that little bit of reflection, that little bit of journaling, whatever we decided, before you even answer the question, I want you to answer this one first. Why is this the most important use of my time right now? Why is this right here, this exercise, this 10 minutes I'm going to spend journaling instead of doing the laundry, the most important use of my time right now? Like we're literally just grounding that decision to focus on your coaching homework in this case in something like way bigger, right? And valuable. And we connected to those bigger goals. And then all in that question, it just forces your brain to like really gain some perspective and connection to the things that are most important to you. And usually that's enough to be like, all right, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes and I'm going to deny myself the clean laundry and we can get through that moment, right?
Yeah. And I like to think sometimes along that, like, no one's going to die if I don't do the laundry. It's typically a task I've set or an expectation I've set for
Yeah,
myself. And once you kind of get over that,
absolutely.
what I really like the question, it's like, what's the most important thing, like with your time right now?
Yes.
Chances are
Yes.
it's never going to be laundry
It's
unless,
almost
you know,
never
you're
going
like
to be.
a week behind and no one has clean clothes. And that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could get into some things like, there's a lot of us like clean spaces, right? We
Yes.
feel better when we walk into a clean house. Like I'm totally the same way. I've also learned, my kids are now 8 and 10. I have also learned that a picked up house really is not the most valuable use of my time. It does not connect me to my bigger goals. And so I have had to over time, I've really had to sort of convince myself of that,
Mm.
over and over and over again to the point where I've been able to lessen that and not now walk into a somewhat messy house and say, "It's okay.
Yeah.
That it wasn't the best use of my time. I would have rather spent the time playing the game with my kid than picking up the house. I would have rather have made that meal because I enjoy cooking and I want a home cooked meal instead of picking up the house. I would have rather have read that book and rested my mind instead of picking up the house. I could connect the things that I'm choosing to do instead, right, to the things that actually matter to me the most. And when I've done that over time, I've been able to really lessen my need for, like, my house to be picked up in exactly the same way, but it takes effort. All of this takes effort, right? These are mindset shifts and redefinitions of success and things like that that take some intentional time and energy and thought space to actually recreate for yourself.
I love that you use that example because I was literally talking to two other mum friends who have two kids under one. And they said the example about a clean house and said, I just need to clean the house. They said they were talking to other mum friends who were like, you just need to let that go. And when they were told that, they see that as a drop in their standards. And I think
Yes.
what if I think of
Yes.
these two individuals, they had particular standards in their life pre-kids, and they were quite rigid in those standards and how they came across and what their life, I guess, externally looked like. And obviously a
Yeah.
kid has blown that up. And so they're finding it really hard to maintain that sort of picture perfect lifestyle. Like I know one of my friends' houses is all white furnishings and looks absolutely beautiful, like a display home. And all my friends with older kids are like, yes, good luck with that. Good luck maintaining that. And she's doing an incredible job. But what would you say to the woman who's like, yeah, but I'm not going to drop my standards. Like a clean house is my thing, even though you can see that they're either staying up till 11 at night or
Yeah.
they're stressing themselves to the eyeballs about keeping it that way and holding that shit together.
Yeah. I love this question because I talk about this a lot. I can think of a particular podcast episode I did on my own podcast that was talking all about this because I don't love the view that you're even lowering your
Yeah.
standards. Like I'm totally against that idea. I think for us as ambitious, goal-focused women, we we cringe at that, right? We feel like a failure just at the idea of that. So I understand the concept of the idea of why we might tell someone to lower our standards or even what that means, but I just never would use that frame. I just don't think it's the most helpful frame for us to use because of how it makes us feel. And that really is what it's all about, right? How it makes us feel. And so what I like to reframe it because what your two friends probably are not allowing themselves to clue into is that in maintaining the standard of a clean house, in this case, they've lowered their standard in some other area of life.
Oof.
And this could be rest. It could be their relationship with themselves. It could be marriage. It could be if it's sleep, it could be then connected to work because they wake up exhausted the next day, and so they're not showing up as the human that they want to be at work, and so they're not as effective at work, right? The choice to maintain the standard of a clean house means that you are sacrificing a different standard. And while that's okay, I'm all for that. If that's what you really want, I just want you to make sure that you're understanding that from like a really conscious decision is being made. By me choosing to uphold this standard, I'm choosing to not uphold this one. Am I okay with that? Is that the standard I want to hold to? Is that the one that connects to my values, to my purpose, to my regret-free life, right? If it does, great. If it doesn't, we got to work on actually processing the emotion of letting go of that particular priority so that you can maintain the priority and the expectations and standards you have and the things that actually matter to you.
Oh, I love that. I never associated looking at it at what that standard was costing you as a standard in another area of life. Because as soon as you said that, I know exactly what it's costing them, and it's something that it's important to them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably is. Probably is. The problem though is a lot of times the things that the standard that we're sacrificing is one that nobody else sees.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? It's
It
our
was that
health.
health.
It's our health, it's like our workouts, it's our sleep, it's our personal time, it's our hobbies, it's the things that, light us back up again. And so it can be difficult for us as women to sacrifice that, or it's easy for us to sacrifice that because people don't see it, right? And we think that we're doing a good job hiding it. But again, if we zoom back out and we say, is this the way you want to maintain life? If you look back at this time and you sacrificed yourself in the midst of this to the point of likely burnout, because that's really where you will head if you continue to lower the standard of your own health and your own mental state and your rest and your emotion, like, is that really how this connects to the bigger picture and the bigger goals that you have in your life? I can't imagine anyone that would say yes. I can't imagine.
100%. And I think, again, that's where obviously your 3C process and really looking at clarity is important. And I'd love to go back to that for a sec, because I think the transition to motherhood, I like to look at it is, some people say that in motherhood you lose parts of yourself. And I don't particularly like that explanation of it. I look at it like you're discovering other aspects of yourself and you're learning
Yeah,
to integrate different parts of yourself. I look at it that way.
totally.
And so I find that can be challenging when you're trying to look at goals and what it is that you want, because you're dealing with an aspect of yourself that you've never met before. So you're like, I'm not really
Mhm.
sure what I want this person to do or what they're capable of. Or it's sort of like you have to have either good role models out there that you're like, oh yeah, this is the sort of mum I want to be. And okay, how does
Yeah,
that mum look at look with the type of worker I want to be? How do you
yeah,
navigate that with, I guess, a new identity that you're trying to
yeah,
incorporate in that process?
yeah, and I do think it's a new identity. I went through what I call the motherhood identity crisis. I call it that now because I've had now, thousands of conversations with women and recognize that we almost all of us go through this on
Mm.
some level. And I usually categorize it as like, who the heck am I? Like, what do I really want in life? What really matters? Am I on the path I even want to be on any like these
Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
like life altering questions
Yeah.
that feel big and sort of esoteric and very confusing. So many women experience the same thing when they become moms, and I did, and it was very jarring. It's very for an ambitious, goal-focused woman who's like saying, I'm not sure if I'm on the right path. I don't even know if I want these goals anymore. I'm not really sure, what I'm all about. Like that is a really, really confusing kind of foundational shaking place to be. And yet, if you let time go by, on some level, you'll be able to pick and choose what the answers to some of those questions are just naturally as time evolves, or you can actually go through a process and put
Yeah.
some word with some of those things, right? Which is where a lot of my clients tend to find me and engage in coaching to like do this in a really intentional and focused way so that they don't spend 5 years trying to figure it out and hoping they sort of arrive at a place that they feel good about, but we like make a decision, we move forward, right? But it does this identity shift. I think it's important to, and I'm a big proponent of talking about the motherhood identity shift because I don't think we talk about it quite enough. Even things like postpartum is something that is on the rise of us really being able to share.
Yeah.
And I think connected to that is a bit of an identity shift that happens. And I wouldn't even call it an identity loss. To your point,
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think that's a very helpful term. It doesn't make us feel good. And if it doesn't make us feel good, let's not use it.
Yeah.
So the identity shift though, and having to decide for yourself, like who are you in this next season of life? I like to think that we always evolve. We're kind of a different person about every decade, right? We're married to a different person every decade, right? We have to
Yeah.
re-engage in our marriage every decade or so. That's the 7-year itch, right? 7 to 10 years or so. We have to decide if we still want to be married to the same partner. on
Yeah.
some level. And so we get the opportunity. I think it's an opportunity to really decide who we are moving forward. And again, if we go way back to the very first thing I said in terms of what's the word we were using? Like the conflict between being a mom and being a professional, right? We
Mm.
live in this culture that tells us we should want some things and not other things. And that we, as like motherhood success as a mom, is very intertwined with time. It's very intertwined with how much we play with our kids, how much we enjoy them, not getting angry at them. We have kind of all of these sort of ideas that have been indoctrinated into us by our own upbringing and then by our culture about being what a good mom is. And it's we get to define that for ourselves. Like
Yeah.
we if we want to, we get to stop and define that for ourselves and define what our new sort of identity is. And I love the idea that it shifts and it kind of we get to discover who this new person is, because that's such a fun, playful way to think about it. And I don't ever like to think that we're a whole new person, because I just don't think that's
Yeah.
true. When I do exercises around helping people find their kind of core identity and things like that, like we're finding things that existed, long before kids, but now they just get to blossom in a completely different way, and you get to showcase them in a different way because you're a mom.
Yeah. And it's so true. If you don't consciously choose the person that you want to be, I like to say that the environment you're in will choose for you. So it's got to
Yep.
be a decision. It might as well be one that
Yep.
you consciously choose and that you're happy with, because
The
yeah,
five
and
people you're around, right? There's that concept, like you become the people you see the most, the five people you see the most, right? So it's
yeah.
the same. Yeah, for sure.
And even just like you said, we kind of were married to a whole new person every 7 to 10 years. I really like that too. It's not like it's a set and forget process. That's not just who you are. You're always consciously creating who you are. Every new experience is an
Yeah.
opportunity to add to that definition, I guess. And so
Yeah.
for
Anyone that says that marriage is a set and forget experience, I mean, I don't know anybody that would ever say that. And if they did, their marriage probably did not make it. I will
I
say
was going to
that.
say, they're not happily married, that's for sure.
They're definitely not happily married if they're married at all. But if we take that same concept, you're in a relationship with yourself. And we don't
Mm.
like to think about it in that sense, or we don't usually frame it in that sense, but we talk to ourselves more than anybody else talks to ourselves. And the way we talk to ourselves, that's obviously just in our mind, right? The talk track that we have in our mind is either one that is supporting us and compassionate towards us and loving us and telling us that we're enough and like rooting us on, or it's a relationship with ourselves that's extremely toxic, where we thought that those types of thoughts should just happen on default. And if they don't, then something's wrong with us and we've got a big problem, versus realizing like we get to work on this relationship with ourselves, including the way we talk to us and how we view ourselves and what we think about ourselves and how we define our future. Like when we think about it from that angle, it kind of help us remember that there's effort that's involved in having a relationship with ourselves. Time, energy,
Yeah.
thought space, it all
Yeah.
is required.
Yeah. And likely the same stuff that we're aiming to give to our kids too, right? We need to give it to
Yep.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yep. And in our marriage. And yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I hope that everyone else listening to this podcast, it's pretty damn clear that what you really need to do is spend time getting clear on what success looks like in this chapter. You've gone through a huge transition. And if you're
Yes.
trying to make everything fit into the nice little box it once was in, you're literally setting yourself up for failure. It's like give
Yeah.
yourself the gift to create this I guess, evolved version of yourself and figure out
Yeah.
what success looks like. And so it's like once you've done that, then you can start going into the tangible action and product and hacks and stuff like that. The reason
Yeah.
I don't like to use the word hack, but it's the only thing that came to mind. But I guess
Strategies.
I just,
How's that?
yeah, I like that, because I really just wanted to use that as a segue to call out something awesome I heard in one of your podcasts the other day, was what you described as the 5 Ds for handling the mental load. I heard that and I feel like I just need to bring this into this podcast because it's
Yeah.
genius. And I think for
Yeah.
especially working mums where you're trying to balance all the things. I mean, yes, the mental load is long. I just thought that strategy, there we go, was really, really helpful. So I'd love for you to dig into that real quick.
Yeah. So it's the 40s actually.
You added this to it.
Oh, did I? Sure.
Oh, yes.
I think
I will
maybe
remind you of the bit.
Yeah. What is my fifth? I don't even remember off the top of my head. That's funny. But yeah, now we're getting into something super tactile, right? Like we're talking about when you have when you have a vision, this comes back to my comment, like just because you know what's most important to you and you've got those 14 things on your list that you might do today and you've decided the few that are actually important now, that doesn't actually mean you're going to do it or not, right? Like there is emotion that comes with all of these decisions on how we use our time. And so in the moment that you are actually going through the 14 things, you really only can do a handful of things with those 14 things on your list, right? And I would usually do this in one sort of sitting. It can feel really overwhelming. I have like a client right now that feels so much like she's drowning in her tasks. Like the idea of stepping away for almost like probably 2 hours and trying to like get it all out of her head because she doesn't even have it organized anywhere, or taking all of her little sticky notes from everything and like figuring it out and putting it in one list and trying to like prioritize it. That's super daunting. I totally understand that. But when you get to that point, there's really only a handful of things that we can do with our tasks. We can decide to do them. We could decide to delegate them to someone else so they get done, but just not by us. We could decide to delay them because they're important to us, but maybe not right now. Or we could decide to dump them. Those are the four Ds. And what was my 50?
Downshift. I loved
Oh,
downshift.
downshift. That's
I
right. You
know.
could
I was like,
Wow, that's such a good one, right. Yeah, or you could downshift, meaning you could shift the way the standard or the expectation that you have about it in such a way that it feels more doable in this particular moment if it's important to you, right? And so that's it. Like when it comes to prioritization, those are the only 5 things we're ever gonna do with those tasks. And we just wanna make sure that as we decide the things that we're actually going to do right now, that it can fit within the container of time that we have decided to get them done. Because too often you might do that list, but if you don't literally like plug it into your calendar to see if it all fits, a lot of us are gonna, we're gonna overshoot that. And we think we're gonna get a lot more done than we actually can, which is really that next step. Like you have to take it to that tangible level to see, can I actually get these things done? And if you're somebody that tends to things like take longer than you think that they're gonna take, like if that's kind of your way of operating, because it is for some people, they're just like, yeah, I can do that in 30 minutes, but really it's like an hour and a half kind of task. You're gonna start to figure that out if you're this like kind of ruthless about how you spend your time and what you actually choose to do.
and I love that method so much because when I heard it, it just felt like a weight lifted off my shoulder because I was like, you're
Mm,
right. There's only literally 5 things I can do with anything on my list. That's
yep,
it.
that's it.
And I can choose to
It's
have
short
that
for
impact on
simple.
them now. Yeah.
Am I gonna
And so
do it? Delegate it, delay it, not do it, or downsize it?
100%. And because I know prior to having my daughter, I a very disciplined, structured. Like if I set aside an hour in my calendar, I'm setting aside that hour, I'm getting these things done. And
Yeah.
that's just what's happening. I tried to bring that strategy over to motherhood and failed quickly. And so instead of going, hey, I'm going to do an hour of work at this set time, I'm going to do these set things, I've had to
Yeah.
sort of relax, I guess, the structure around it and go, these are
Mm,
the things. I was like, maybe if I just say, I need to get these done today, that will be enough. What I've actually had to do is go, these are the things that are going to get done this week. I've had to expand that time frame out
sure.
just because of the shit show that it can be sometimes. And
Yeah.
so that was really hard in terms of the tools that I had weren't quite fitting anymore either. And I find that when I'm in the office, I can apply those old tools because I don't have the variable of having a little human running around. But
Yep.
to your point, I've decided when my little daughter is around, something else is more important, and that's how I'm managing it instead. So I think I'd
Yeah.
love to hear how you coach your clients through that as well, because I think even the tactics are quite individualized as well, because you can
Yeah.
just Google productivity hacks for busy mums and how to balance working mum life, and then you try these tools and they don't work for you and you think you're a failure. I think it's really
Yeah.
individualized as well. What would you say to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is individualized, but I think the most important tool that is not is probably one of the hardest tools that we is I would consider a productivity tool or tip or strategy, whatever we want to call it. And is probably the hardest one, and we like to skip over it because of it, is actually processing all of the emotions that come with the decisions we're making in the moment and the things we're choosing to do or pivot from or change from in the moment, right? Like you could choose in coming back to your example of this, right? You extended your time frame. I love that. That works for you. Awesome. Another option could have been for you to have the plan for the day because your brain needs that plan, and then hold it loosely enough that you could change it on some level, but then knowing that when you had thought you were going to get something done and then your daughter wakes up from her nap and you can't, that moment is an emotion-filled moment. It comes with frustration, it comes with maybe even anger at her. It comes with like, what the heck am I doing wrong? I can't even handle this. It comes with like all of this judgment and helplessness in that single moment, right? And that emotion, if you don't do something with it, you carry it obviously into your relationship with your daughter when you go pick her up from her nap, your irritation, all the things that you probably don't want to be as a mom. But then that emotion continues to carry with you into the rest of your day, the rest of your week, even potentially. Your productivity starts to drain because you're carrying with you all of these emotion-filled moments that you haven't done much with, right? And so learning how to sure have a plan, and then when the plan goes awry and you make a choice to alter the plan, to just deal with the emotion of that moment instead of letting it fester and carrying it with you and kind of carrying you down like that. That's one of the most freeing things I think any of us can experience, and you're going to buy back at a ton of time because our backpack of emotion that we carry around with us from day to day, 100% slows us down. It slows down our effectiveness, our thought, our ability to make decisions, our questioning. It leads into the self-doubt. It leads into, it becomes a snowball effect of the negative talk track in our head, and that is sucking you of your time. You literally can't make decisions and move fast enough and make trade-off decisions in a way that's really proactive and helpful to you because you're carrying all of the emotion around with you.
Thank you for calling that out because I have never heard anyone speak to it so eloquently. And it's so true. Like, as soon as you said that, one of the examples, and it's ironic because one of my jobs is I'm a personal trainer and health and fitness is super important to me. My daughter has found a way to, whenever I plan to exercise, wake up, like it doesn't matter. And I've played around with different alarm settings. My mental health coping mechanism, I'm doing like air quotes because I have different ways to do that now. But I like to train in the morning just so I get up, move my body, and that feels really good for me. No matter what time I set my alarm for, and I've tried, like I set my alarm for 3:50. Well, she doesn't even hear it. It's like she knows it's going to happen. Like I'll set it for 3:50 in the morning. I'll get changed. I'm about to walk out the door at 3:47, and she wakes up. I'm like, how did you know? How did you know?
Isn't that amazing?
And
So interconnected to us. It's the most
exactly.
beautiful thing. Love it.
And then, I have options there. I can get really pissed off because I'm like, I just want time for myself. I just want to work out. Or I go, oh, she's up right now. She went like, it is what it is. And I know this is important to me. So I know I'll make time for it later. It's just right now, this is more important to me in my time. It's going to check that my daughter's okay.
Yeah.
But that emotion, that was something that was really hard because I think it was, I would tell myself, I'm like, oh, this is the one thing I do a day for me. And I'll get really angry and anxious about it. And then I talked to my husband about it. I said, moving my body is important to me. It's good for health reasons, obviously.
Yes.
And so as long as I can do it at some point during my day, I'm fine. But if I hold on to that anger and resentment, that's not helping anyone.
Yeah, it sticks with you the rest of the day, right? You're irritated when you're going to bed because you woke up, because then you are going to set your alarm for the next day and you're going to look, she woke up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm probably going to happen again. And you
What's
have
the
this
point?
whole, what's the point, right? And it's all because you didn't let yourself process the irritation that happened in that moment. And a lot of us might make the quote right decision, like the decision that we want to make in that moment. Like in this case, for you, the right decision was to just be with your daughter for as long as she was awake and, delay the workout or whatever. So you did the thing you actually wanted to do, but did it bring the joy, connected, happiness kind of experience that you want to have when you choose the thing that you want to do? And it can, and I mean, it just depends, right? What I want to suggest is that you can make that decision and you can have a moment of irritation and learn how to let that emotion go so that it doesn't stack with you and stay with you through the day. Or you can feel irritated and remain irritated and be irritated while you're up with your kid, or try to get them back down to sleep and have an entire internal experience that doesn't match the kind of life that you want to be leading, even though you're making quote unquote the right decisions that you said you wanted to make.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that is I'm still mind blown at that as a productivity strategy or tool because
It
it's so,
is.
so important. And I think one thing, I know we're running on time and I feel like I won't do this podcast justice unless I talk about boundaries for working mums
A
and
whole
just,
nother one.
yeah, what it looks like as well. What's a quick tip or something you would say to a mum who's like, I'm blending work and family. It's just I hear my team call go off and I'm with my daughter. Do I answer it? How would you support a mum who's struggling with boundaries?
Right, and I mean, it goes with this conversation of emotional processing because the thing I think most people don't understand around boundaries is we like to think about them like they're almost like a fence, right?
Mm.
Like a physical something that is where we're when we're inside the fence, we're doing one thing and we don't wanna be outside the fence and never shall my sheep cross over the fence on some level,
Get
and
back
it's
here, sheep.
I know. It's not in reality, that fence is actually just our decisions. Like, we make decisions, we make thousands and thousands of decisions a day to either lean into and choose the things that are important to us and that we value and we prioritize, or we let other things take over our time and our energy, and it's somebody else's priorities or whatever it might be. And so we make decisions every day to either uphold our priorities or not. And with that decision comes a flood of emotion. Because to be honest, having a ruthlessly prioritized life, which mean and you have to in order to have a life that is everything that you wanna do, it has to be ruthlessly prioritized, or I like to say ruthlessly edited. It's a life where you're going after the handful of things that super matter to you and you're not the other things, right? That trade-off doesn't feel good to most of us, right? Leaving the house unclean doesn't feel good. Leaving your kid crying in the crib to go work out doesn't feel good, right? These having to go pick up your sick kid and delay the workshop doesn't feel good. Like these things are emotions. Now they're the boundary is really that we're protecting the things that are valuable to us and the things that matter to us. That's really what the boundary is. But doing that brings along with it a lot of big feelings. And so learning how I mean, emotional processing or like nervous system regulation, is just another way of saying that. Learning how to like slow our heartbeat down and stop the anxiety and the flutter that's going on inside of us so we can actually think proactively, make decisions from a really grounded place and feel more on purpose in our life, like meaning like feel the things you actually want to feel in your life. To do that requires some set of a toolkit of learning how to not just push through all of the feelings that happen in the big trade-off moments when you are in fact holding the boundary, but actually learning how to let them come up, let them go, and move on into a much more intentional head and heart space as you do it.
Love it.
Like we have
And
one happy to be back, talk about it.
yeah, way you described it as well, it's like often the emotions that come up as a result of boundaries, yes, we need to move through them. And it's always like, as long as you reflect on why the boundaries in place, what you're protecting that's valuable, I feel like immediately that can provide some sense of like, it's okay. Like the emotions
Yeah.
are big and scary, but there's a really, really good reason why they're coming up
Yep.
because I'm protecting something that's really valuable.
Yeah. Again, the clarity piece. It's why it's the
Yeah.
first step, right?
Well,
Otherwise, it's not going to work out.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What's a really actionable step someone can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to show themselves that, yes, they actually can be a successful working mum and be their definition of a great parent as well? What's a really actionable step someone can do?
Yeah. I'm a big I'm somebody that loves to kind of question my thoughts all of the time, right? We like to think that our thoughts are truth just because we think it must be true, when in reality, our thoughts are just thoughts. Our mind is supposed to offer it to us lots of thoughts and have lots of perspectives. None of them are true and none of them are false. They're just thoughts. And so learning how to sort of think on purpose, meaning like direct your thoughts in the way that you want to and poke holes in the stories that you have about life or your past life or your future. like literally like poke holes in how these things, maybe they're not exactly true, is one of the most, valuable practices I do as an individual. It's one that I teach a lot of my clients to do as well. And so in this case, what I would suggest, just because we've had so much conversation around clarity of success, I would literally sit down and write, what does success for me as a professional and a mom look like, or just a working mom look like, right? And your brain is probably going to come up with like a blank. And that's okay. Or it's going to come up with really lame thoughts on that, right? And that's okay too. I'm a perfectionist. I totally understand that happens. I'd encourage you to write whatever comes to mind, however stupid it might be, and let it become the snowball to other thoughts, right? This is what I mean. And if that question is hard for you, I bet you might be able to answer, what is success not? That might
Yes.
be easier for some of us to get to the place, well, I know it's not this. I know it's not me spending every moment of the day with my child. Believe me, that is not my definition of success.
Yeah.
And I knew it never was that, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. If that's your version, that's okay. But maybe that's an easier question for you to get to. Or what makes me successful as a human being is another one. We talked about just your success story. Poking holes in like time has to be the indicator of success, or other people's being happy with me being the indicator of success, right? Literally just taking the time to sit down and let yourself think on purpose around what these things are or what they're not is going to bring a lot of direction for your brain to help actually create a life where these things actually happen.
And to the woman who's just put this on her to-do list and it's like item number 20, yes, this is the most important thing to do in your next break.
And you might start with the question, why is this the most important use of my time right now, even more so than the laundry? I promise that perspective or that question, if you answer it first, is going to help you.
100%. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rebecca. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for offering such a beautifully fresh perspective on what it means to be a professional and a mum and how you can integrate both of those. If someone is curious to learn more about the incredible work that you do and listen to your podcast, which I highly recommend, where can they do that?
Yeah, so you can find me at my podcast, which is Ambitious and Balanced Working Moms. You can find that wherever podcasts are listened to. If you want to learn more about coaching with me, either my one-on-one or my group coaching, you can simply go to my website, RebeccaOlsonCoaching.com. And I do have a free offer for your listeners here. I call it the Daily Kickstart. It is by far the kind of practice or strategy that I have offered to my clients for years now that they continually tell me is like the most life-changing one. And I have just recently released it to the masses, if you will, to everyone. I wanted to give everybody access to that. And it's really just like a 10-minute morning kind of mindset practice, but it's not your average like morning practice, right? I know we all hear that, we kind of roll our eyes and it's like, no. This is about getting ahead of all of the icky negative talk tracks that tend to happen in our day, like getting your mind focused on the right kind of powerful thoughts that you want to have about yourself and your life, and actually getting ahead of how that might be triggered throughout your day. It's one of the most anchoring things you could absolutely ever do. So I call it the Daily Kickstart, and that I'm sure you're going to link to that as well in the show notes.
Amazing. I did have a quick squiz at that. And for those who've taken away all the incredible gems from this podcast already, you need to jump on this because it's just like having Rebecca in your pocket every morning. So who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, love it. So good.
Well, thank you again so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, Myth, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope this was helpful. If you thought of someone while listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could share this episode with them. While you're doing that, please also take a moment to leave a review on the podcast if you haven't yet already. It takes less than a minute and it means so much to me and helps this podcast to reach more people just like you. Thank you so much for that, and I'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out and achieve every dream you have, because actually, you can.